Good afternoon, everyone. We are here again to talk about the budget. It's again that time of the year when we think about budget and country as a perspective. And budget once again comes just before the elections. Before the elections, as we have already seen in the past, it's supposed to be a popularistic budget. But before we go into the popularistic side of the budget and how the government may just try and focus upon it, let's ponder over things which have happened in the past, say in the tax regime which they have done, to see what kind of things can we expect, because personally I have seen them going beyond the obvious in a few things. You may take it from a GST perspective. Yes, they've gone beyond the obvious, ringing the bell when everybody said no, it's not the time. They said yes, it's the time. Looking at changes that have come in Article 9 to, clarification definitely needed for a long time. They have got a clarification already out, so keeping that also aside from the budget. Looking at truncating your audit proceedings, looking at, changes like reducing the tax rate. At least they have mooted that idea for a lot of companies, have given incentives to some companies. So the government over the time, between the budget periods, have thought about changes which have gone beyond the obvious. And this is again what of my expectation is from the budget, that I believe that they would go beyond the obvious. Let us look at the three important aspects then in the phases in which the budget comes in. First is your budget when it comes to the direct taxes. Second is the indirect taxes. And third is income that the government gets from non-tax aspects like your PSUs, your disinvestments, sale of your 4G spectrum. Let's analyze these and see what the government may do in these. Let's look at indirect tax. I do not expect them to do a lot more tinkering with the indirect tax. They already have the GST Council which will look at this as an aspect. So let's keep GST aside for a moment for this budget, because changes are there, and I believe they should just slow down with those changes and let company come up in grips with what is there before they go ahead with it. When it comes to direct taxes, this is a smart government. They would not be looking at the obvious thing of increasing just the slab rate and giving those incentives. And looking at it from a personal perspective, giving me an incentive of 1,000-1,500 rupees may not mean a lot to an individual, but the numbers actually climb up when we look at the economy as a whole. And the government in the past have shown that the focus is let the people file their tax returns. They want to get the tax returns in. So I don't expect the government to make changes in the slab rates. This is a smart government, like I said in the past. They would make 2-3 changes which I expect. One, increasing the limit in the ATC. So that means you file your tax return and still may not be paying any taxes. Coming up with a regime called a standard deduction, which was there in the past. Again, you will be filing your tax returns, but maybe going back to a nil return kind of a position. But you will be you'll be liable to file your tax returns. So this way the government will be able to achieve the two benefits together, that is making you file your tax return and then you still not end up paying any taxes. So it is actually a kind of a mix that I expect the government to come up with. But there's one thing that the government needs to correct, which is the house property. They have restricted the interest deduction to 2 lakhs. One way the Supreme Court and the government is saying, go buy your houses, we are after you, we back you, we want you to do that. And on the second front, they try and limit the tax exemption. I believe the government may just want to look at it and correct it this ways. As far as the company goes, they have already indicated that they are looking at reducing the tax rates for the corporates. I believe they should just take a step ahead and take that kind of a step. Just go ahead, walk that path. The corporates have paid taxes in the past. They have been paying these kind of taxes in the past. The profit-linked deductions have actually gone down. Sunset clauses have actually come in. It's time that we look at reducing the tax rates and sending that positive signal that yes, ease of doing business means ease of doing business at every step of your business. Looking at the third important aspects, which is like your 4G spectrum, selling of your PSUs, even thinking of a creative idea of how to make your railways profitable. It is a government sector where government has been investing in the past, and still rail budgets are still separate budgets. We are still not being able to make profits. Why not look at doing that aspects that helps us reduce the fiscal deficits, and that puts less pressure on the people who are actually paying taxes. We already know that only about 2% of the population is paying taxes. So it's like a squeezed lemon. If you try and squeeze them more, we may get a few drops out. But that is not what we are looking at. And one more thing apart from that which I would like to add, it's a budget just before the elections, but it's good to have your wish list. One of the wish lists that I carry is having agricultural income tax. That is the way where we get a largest chunk of taxes, the increase in the tax base. We widen the risk that we carry. It's said that don't keep all your eggs in one basket. I believe with the taxpayer we're keeping all our eggs in one basket. Just diversifying that basket may be a good idea. But in a country like India, taxing agricultural income, well, it's still a taboo which has not been looked at, but definitely good to keep it as part of your wish list. See you all after the budget. Thank you.